Okay, welcome everyone to our after the sermon conversation here. I'm Pastor Sue Coller here at First Presbyterian Church, and we take time each week to dive a little deeper into the stuff we talked about during the sermon on Sunday. And so if your interest was piqued on Sunday, you definitely want to catch these every week. We drop them on our podcast and YouTube channel every Wednesday. And you can go a little deeper with us. So welcome, and glad you're here. And welcome, Nancy.
When I'm just going to say, when bad things happen, how do we operate, more from that we are all one perspective, as opposed to you and I are separate from each other, and I am afraid of you, or I don't like you, or I love you, whatever that is. But that notion of oneness, in seemingly, I'll say, the duality, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we kind of reconcile that? How do we get centered and say, you know what? I don't like this situation, but I can find peace in it.
We were created for community. We were never intended to live life alone. We're always intended to live life in relationship with others and be there as a support for each other. And, in terms of how do we recognize our oneness in things, is I think recognizing that we all go through these times of ups and downs. And so while our experience may feel unique to us, it's not unique to the human story. And so even if I'm having a difficulty with someone, I can look at them and recognize that they're going through part of the human story that I go through. They may experience it different. They may look at it different. They may respond to it differently. But ultimately, deep down, we all walk through the same experiences. And so to recognize that is to recognize the connections and the bonds between us, and hopefully engenders more compassion when we're dealing with someone that we may not have the greatest experience with.
What you're talking about is, again, one of the things that makes humans unique is we have a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So we can practice, kind of understanding and observing what we're doing and how we're feeling, and take a moment, that pause, if you will, to say, how do I want to be in the world at this point? But the other thing we have is we have the awareness to even observe when we're operating in a conscious or an unconscious way.
Yes.
Right? Which is, I think, why, doing whatever you're doing to kind of nurture your soul and your consciousness is a way for us to choose how we want to be. So that leads to my next question for you. And you led into it so beautifully, I have to say, is, so how can we transform like hate or fear into love? How do we do that? Because it's amazing how powerful of creatures we are, that we actually can transform how we feel.
We can. And I guess I can only speak of how I do it. And that's, I take the time, I try to pay attention to what I'm feeling. This whole worship series is stop and breathe and trust. And that breathe period to me is key, because that's when I'm noticing what's going on around me and in me. And that's when I can say, okay, do I want to stay on that path or not? Thanks for joining us at First Presbyterian Church, where faith is nurtured, curiosity encouraged, diversity welcomed, and all are loved. Find out more about us at fpclincoln.org.